I'm Jenny Lass, and I'm the co-author of the Grain-Free Gourmet cookbook series. And I'm here today with a bunch of friends, and we are going to learn how to make our very own homemade yogurt. So you might ask, well, why? Why bother making your own yogurt? It seems like a lot of trouble. Well, there are a few reasons you might want to do that. One is because you can control the fat content. You can make yogurt out of 1% milk or skim or whipping cream. You can even use a different kind of milk, like sheep's milk or goat's milk, although those yogurts come together in a much thinner way. They're a lot runnier, but you can still do it, and then you can drip them to make them thicker. And another reason you might want to make your own yogurt is that you can control the amount of lactose. So if you're very lactose intolerant, you have trouble with dairy, and even if you have trouble with casein, the protein in dairy, you can have yogurt that you make yourself and ferment for a very long period of time. And when you ferment it for a very long period of time, like we're going to do, it gets rid of all the lactose, breaks down the casein, and it's very high in probiotics. Yes, we have a question.
Now, I understand some yogurts have higher protein than others. Would cooking it or fermenting it for a longer period of time increase the amount of protein, or is that a completely different process?
Yeah, I mean, the protein would go up when you drip it and get rid of the whey. And we're going to talk about that later on once we make it, but that's a good question. Yeah, it's fermenting it doesn't do anything to increase or decrease the amount of protein. It decreases the amount of lactose and increases the amount of good bacteria, but the protein gets increased or concentrated when you drip it. So, excellent question.
Okay, and the casein, I know like that's my problem.
Yes.
So then that gets rid of that problem.
Some people do find that they have an easier time with dairy if they have problems with casein with this kind of yogurt, because everything's just so chewed up and broken down. Because regular homemade, regular yogurt, I should say, from the store, was only fermented for 4 to 6 hours, but the yogurt we're going to make is going to be fermented for 24 to 36. Big difference, big difference. And that's another advantage, is a lot of the store, of course you can get store-bought probiotic yogurt, but the store-bought probiotic yogurt usually has a lot of additives and a lot of sugar. So this yogurt is plain and simple. So I have here on my table the equipment that we need. It's really not complicated. It sounds like it is, but it's not. We have milk, and I usually do 2 liters at a time. You want to make sure you get milk or cream that has milk and maybe some added vitamin D, and that's it. Because sometimes when you look at dairy, it has a paragraph of ingredients. You don't want that. You don't need that.
What kinds of additives should we be aware of? I know you've mentioned that sometimes they add things. Now, what would they be adding?
I don't even remember. I should have bought something to, I mean, it's literally a paragraph. I'm like, shouldn't it just be milk? I mean, there are sort of stabilizers and I guess preservatives and things like that.
Creepy stuff. And things you can't pronounce. So
things you can't pronounce, that's right. If you don't recognize what it is, don't bother with it. It's easy to find milk and cream nowadays that doesn't have a lot of additives.
So something organic, basically.
This isn't organic.
Oh.
You can do organic. So there are certain advantages to doing, organic. I might be exposed to fewer pesticides, right? But organic doesn't necessarily mean that the cows are grass-fed, for example.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
So are you using lactose-free milk or regular milk?
Regular milk, because the lactose is going to be taken care of with the fermentation process. I'm trying to use milk that's been tampered with as little as possible. So yeah, this is just plain old.
So that's neutral. Right?
This is natural, yeah. But I don't work for Natrel. I'm not telling everyone to use Natrel. It's just what I happen to pick up because it doesn't have those additives. You also
send them.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I want a royalty.
Yeah.
And I have this is the other key ingredient to making yogurt. Really, there are only 2 ingredients: milk or cream, and a starter. Again, I do not work for Astro, but I found this to be a great starter. Astro plain Balkan style yogurt. And for 2 liters of milk, we're going to use a half a cup. And the other kind of starter you can use is a freeze-dried starter that you can buy, usually from a health food store, and it's usually in the fridge section, I believe. And you can buy the brand I've known people to use is the same brand as the yogurt maker that we have here, Gourmet. So we have some equipment, again, not very fancy. I have a pot and a wooden spoon. And you'll see how I'm going to use these in a minute. In fact, I can place them over here. This is my method for cooling milk because we're going to bring it to a boil. I have a couple of bowls and I'm going to set them aside here. And the yogurt maker, and it comes in two parts. This is the inner container and this is the outer container. And really the only purpose it serves is to keep your milk with the starter added at a continuous, consistent temperature, high temperature. You can do it with a light bulb. There are all different methods. You can do it in a very low heated oven. There are all different methods for making your own yogurt. My grandfather used to stick milk in a corner and wait for it to go bad. But this is really foolproof and it's really hardy. I've had my Gourmet yogurt maker for 10 years. And
are you paid by Gourmet?
Oh, I know I'm not. But it's usually what's recommended, and you'll see how it comes into play and how we're going to use this and how it all comes together. So I'm going to put this aside for now. So yeah, I'm going to get rid of these. This out of the way. And we are actually going to start making the yogurt. Are there any other questions before we? No, nothing from the peanut gallery.
Can you use flavored yogurt as a starter?
I wouldn't. Your yogurt, the important thing about the yogurt starter is that it has to have active bacterial culture in it, and you don't want additives, you don't want anything, you want it to be as pure as possible. That's why I use this plain, and I'm just skimming for the ingredients. Skim milk, cream, active bacterial cultures. That's what you need to have, and I've always found this to be quite a fail-proof starter. So
it also looks pretty economical. Like how much would you say the two of them together cost you?
And we're not going to use all of this. This is for many. Yeah, this just lasts in the fridge. That's a really good question. So the 2 liters I think is about $5 or $6, and this I can't remember because I don't buy it all that often. But it's like I mean it's like under $10.
Yeah. And
this will last me for about a week because I eat yogurt every day. And this will last me for several, for at least a month or so.
Yeah, so it's a third of the price of what you would get in the store. If
that's
not less.
True. That's true. I don't even think about it because I don't buy my yogurt anymore. So okay, I'm gonna put this back in the fridge. You want to keep it in the coolest part of your fridge. So I keep it down below. It tends to be the coolest, not in your crisper, but. So here we go. Step 1, open your milk. Step 2, pour your milk into your pot. And it doesn't have to be this large a pot. I just have a really big pot. You don't want it, you want to have, a couple of inches or so above the line of where the milk ends up after you pour it in, because it will start to bubble and boil over a little bit once you get it to a boil. But you don't, my pot is overkill. It's just the size of pot I happen to have.
Now, does it matter if it's a non-reactive pot or a cast iron or something? Do you have any preference for that?
No, I haven't heard of anything making any kind of a difference. So I've turned this up to not quite the highest setting. I've turned it up just a notch below the highest setting. The challenge with milk is that it scalds, so you can't turn this up and go leave it and do something else. This is the only fiddly part of the whole process. You do have to stir. So this is what we're going to do now. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to stir. And you just stir it continuously, and it takes about 10 minutes to come to the boil. So I'm literally going to stir this until it starts becoming a rolling boil, and then I'm going to take it off.
While you're stirring, I have a question. I've noticed that there were different models of yogurt maker, and one of them was the kind that looks like, I'd say, about 4 or 5 little pots.
I've seen that.
On one stand. I remember that. My mom used to have that one. Yeah. But I'm wondering, is there any advantage or disadvantage to the tiny pot method versus the one unified one?
No. I find that, I mean, I've always enjoyed having the one unified container because you can divide it up into smaller containers if you want, and it sort of saves room in your fridge if it's just all in one spot. And I actually transfer mine into a smaller container once it works its way down so that I can then make another batch of yogurt. Okay. So yeah, I mean, it's really just personal preference.
Have you ever used your own yogurt as a yogurt starter?
That's an excellent question. I haven't, and I've been advised against it. Sometimes our fridges they're not as cold as commercial fridges, and so they don't always retain a really solid level of good bacteria. Like if your yogurt's been sitting in the fridge, I mean, it's not going to go bad, right? But it's been sitting in your fridge for 2 or 3 weeks for some reason, and you use a batch of that to try and start your next batch of yogurt, then it might come out, it might not coagulate, it might come out a bit runny. You have to make sure you have really solid bacteria, and that's why I usually buy the commercial yogurt as the starter. And that's, I don't know, it's never been a problem for me. But I do know people who've used their own yogurt as a starter, and it didn't turn out well.